President Trump says he has full confidence in his attorney general, despite growing calls for William Barr to resign. His comments came hours after the judge in Roger Stone's case says his sentencing will happen on Thursday as planned. Stone asked Judge Amy Berman Jackson for a new trial, a request she denied. On Tuesday, the president distanced himself from Stone despite their longtime friendship. He also denied speaking with Barr about the case.
I think he's doing an excellent job. He's a strong guy. I never spoke to him about the Roger Stone situation. Roger Stone, just so you know, never worked. He didn't work for my campaign. There might have been a time way early, long before I announced, where he was somehow involved a little bit, but he was not involved in our campaign at all. And I think it was a very, very rough thing that happened to Roger Stone.
For more, let's bring in Francesca Chambers at the White House and Andrew Desiderio in Arlington, Virginia. Francesca is a White House correspondent for McClatchy, and Andrew is a congressional reporter for Politico. Welcome to you both. Francesca, we just heard the president say he is not talking to Barr about the Stone case, but what are your sources telling you about what the White House wants to see happen?
Well, to this point, the White House has tried to stay very far away from this particular case, to not even give the perception that they are trying to interfere. But the president today said that he feels that someone has to stick up for these people. And it's another example of how the president and his social media, he oftentimes says things that are his personal opinion, and the White House often has to caution and say that just because the president's tweeting that from his personal Twitter account, that's not necessarily the stance of the White House and something he's planning to do.
Andrew, the president admitted today that he is making Barr's job harder because of his constant tweeting about Stone, and he insisted he could get involved in the case if he wanted to. Let's listen to what he said.
The Attorney General is a man with incredible integrity. Now, just so you understand, I chose not to be involved. I'm allowed to be totally involved. I'm actually, I guess, the chief law enforcement officer of the country, but I've chosen not to be involved. But he is a man of great integrity. But I could be involved if I wanted to be.
So, Andrew, how are those comments likely to sit with lawmakers?
Well, today, actually, you saw three key lawmakers, Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell, Senate Judiciary Committee Chairman Lindsey Graham, and House Republican Leader Kevin McCarthy issue a statement in support of Attorney General Barr amid these attacks that he has faced, not just from folks on the right and even tacitly the president, but from many in the outside legal community. You'll recall a few days ago, around 2,000 former top DOJ employees signed a letter saying that Barr should resign over his alleged meddling in the Roger Stone case. So at least Barr's allies on Capitol Hill are coming to his defense, and I think it is a tacit propping up of his criticism of the president's tweets, in which Barr was saying last week, of course, in that interview that aired on Friday, that essentially the president tweeting about criminal cases makes his job harder, and I think that really resonated with Republican lawmakers.
Well, Francesca, as Barr faces calls to resign, should we expect the relationship between the Attorney General and the president to turn sour if the president does continue commenting on DOJ cases?
Well, and the president, again, says he has full confidence in the Attorney General, and a White House official telling me after that interview in which Barr made those comments that Democrats who think that Barr should resign should essentially dream on, because it's absolutely not going to happen. And he's also, very unlikely to be impeached as well and removed from office in any way. So the White House really brushing this controversy off, at least at this time.
So, Andrew, what investigations from lawmakers can we expect into the Justice Department's intervention in Stone's case?
Well, the first possibility is that the four prosecutors who did resign from the case last week could come in for testimony. And now that will obviously be up to them, but it will also be up to Speaker Pelosi and Chairman Jerry Nadler of the House Judiciary Committee in terms of whether they want to actually issue subpoenas to compel that testimony. They haven't made any decisions on that front, and they have sort of competing political priorities right now within the House Democratic caucus among those who want to be aggressive still against the Trump administration on general oversight, and those more moderate members and members who come from Republican-leaning districts who don't want House Democrats to sort of relitigate the impeachment issue or, seem overzealous after they lost on the impeachment question.
Well, Francesca, we also heard from John Bolton for the first time on Monday. He's accusing the White House of trying to censor his forthcoming book. What's been the White House's response, and are they concerned with what information Bolton is planning to reveal?
Well, certainly the White House has acted to try and stop him from releasing that book, saying that it contains particularly sensitive national security information in order to try and keep that from coming out. But of course, that manuscript is unpublished as of yet. And so a few people, at least in the White House and even in the general public, have had access to the entire contents to be able to assess whether or not that's true.
And Andrew, Democratic Senator Chris Murphy was one of 3 senators to meet with Ukraine's Volodymyr Zelensky this past week. Murphy says Zelensky promised them he'd steer clear of the president's personal attorney, Rudy Giuliani. Are lawmakers taking a more active approach to Ukraine post-impeachment?
I think that's fair to say. Senator Murphy went on the trip to Ukraine this past weekend with 2 key Republican senators, Ron Johnson of Wisconsin and John Barrasso of Wyoming, and they organized the trip in part to show that yes, even especially after impeachment, there is still strong bipartisan U.S. support among Democrats and Republicans for Ukraine. And one of the things that Senator Murphy said he really wanted to find out was he just wanted to make sure that President Zelensky wasn't going to sort of succumb to any pressure that might still be there from Rudy Giuliani, similar to what we saw last year, of course, when in May of 2019, Mr. Giuliani actually requested a meeting with President Zelensky, and he said that request was done with the knowledge and consent of the president. So it was an important meeting for these lawmakers to have, especially after impeachment.
Yeah, it's really interesting to see bipartisan action and show of support on this issue post-impeachment. Well, Francesca, before we go, while the president is refusing to say whether he'd pardon Roger Stone, he did give clemency to 11 people on Tuesday, most notably former Illinois Governor Rod Blagojevich. Why did the president give these men clemency, and does it point to what he may do with Stone?
Well, the president made it pretty clear today, Elaine, that he feels that they were treated very unfairly, particularly, as you said, Blagojevich. He thinks that the amount of time that he spent in prison did not fit the crime, as you could say. The punishment was too stringent. And he brought up Robert Mueller and Comey and McCabe and all the FBI people who had been involved. And he had pointed to that prior to today and suggested that his belief that their behavior, they might have done something wrong, was part of the reason he was considering this, and that is something we heard from him again on the tarmac when he was speaking to reporters today.
All right, Francesca Chambers and Andrew Desiderio, thank you both.
Thank you.